Good morning. It is the morning break. I'm Rob Patz. I am glad you're here. Another day, another great day. This is the day the Lord have made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I was thinking of that this morning. My mom, when I was little, every morning she would declare that over me. And I love that. I love that whole statement. And we need to say that more often. The Lord hath made. I rejoice and be glad in it. Rejoicing is a choice. Something to think about. Good to be here on today's edition. You know, a lot of great things going on in life in general. I had a fantastic day of meetings yesterday. And, you know, you guys get to see it like 30 minutes, kind of like we say, we call it the morning break. But it was just one of those days full of just amazing, awesome opportunities. God is growing what we're doing with Abundant TV and with the network, and some exciting things to come that you and I will talk about as those things happen. You know, the one thing I did forget to talk about yesterday on the show, it was my own error, is it was the Rob and Kristen show last night. If you didn't catch it, you missed out on some great interviews. You can catch it again today, I believe at 4 o'clock Eastern time, and then it'll be on demand coming up. But some really neat interviews. We talked to an archaeologist, and it was super interesting. He's got a documentary that's out about archaeology and all kinds of neat stuff. Made me feel very Indiana Jones. Kid you not. Totally. Hey, that's some great coffee. And of course, got to talk about the great folks at 7 Weeks Coffee. 7 Weeks Coffee. That's 7weekscoffee.com. Use the promo code ATV10 when you order. Now, we're going to have the founder of 7 Weeks Coffee on the show coming up here in just a very short time. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be in the month of May. We're working on that. We're going to his schedule, my schedule, and days where he can do it where we're not already booked for the show. So that's what we're working on there. Neat stuff. But 7 Weeks Coffee. You know, I talked about it a lot. I've talked about the fact that the variety pack is the way to go. And I totally agree with you with this. My wife was the one that suggested it and got it for me, and it was the best choice she made. It was the one that she got. That was everything else from that point forward was great coffee, but it was interesting to try the different kinds. Now, I'm a dark roast guy by trade. I love a good dark roast coffee. It's what I'm drinking today. But I do like some of their others. I love their morning blend. It's really light. If you're not a serious coffee person, then I would go for the morning blend. Also, it worked really great when I was doing the Daniel fast earlier this year and couldn't have any sugar at all. So it had a little bit of the notes of sweetness to it, and that made it so much better. 7 Weeks Coffee. That's 7weekscoffee.com. Use the promo code ATV10 when you order, okay? And time for our My Hyphen Snackies look-in cam. Now, the reason we're back in Gatlinburg, okay? The reason we're back is because somebody asked me if I've taken that tram. No, I have not. It's a serious thing in my life that I'm scared of heights. Though I did one in Tahoe a couple of years ago, and I was very proud of myself, but it was huge. It was like the size of a bus. So I'm not really sure that really counted. These are very small. I think like 2 people or 4 people. They look small. I don't know how many people they do, but the My Hyphen Snackies look in cam. Remember, if you are looking for freeze-dried coffee or for freeze-dried candies, coffee's on my mind this morning. Freeze-dried candies, the great folks at my-snackies.com. They're a Christian-owned company. And with graduation just around the corner. Now, graduation's a great time to get stuff like this. Break it out, put it in a dish, let people know. They're going to think you're very hip and very cool because freeze-dried candies are like super hot right now. And I have to be honest, this is the first time I ever tried them. Was this year. And I really liked them. They were really good. So also, hey, a couple of things, I always like to bring up stuff. We're into spring now, which is awesome. And today is actually National Baseball Day. You'd think it would be opening day, but it's not, because from all the records that are out there, today was the first day that baseball was played in a format, and here's where it gets kind of sticky, in a format that's very recognizable to way we play or view baseball now. So today is National Baseball Day. Go out. My team, the Seattle Mariners, not doing so well. My adopted team, the Detroit Tigers, they're doing better. I'm actually much more of a Tiger fan this year. Yes, fair weather is definitely in my vocabulary. So this year I'm kind of cheering for the Tigers more than the Mariners. I've had a tough season, lost again last night to the A's. They're not the Oakland A's anymore. They're not the Sacramento A's. They're just the A's. They're going to, of course, move to Vegas at some point, and they'll be the Vegas A's, I guess. I have no idea. Oh, yes, a lot going on in the world that we know. And so we appreciate you being a part of the show. When we come back, this is a super interesting topic. We've got Holly Rohring. She's going to be with us. We're going to talk about anxiety. We're going to do that after these very important messages.
Behind every precious life, there was a choice. Behind every family moment, behind every special memory, there was a choice. A life of joy. A life that is beautifully and wonderfully made. At 7 Weeks Coffee, we are funding the pro-life movement, one cup at a time. Will you let your coffee serve a greater purpose?
Great, folks. It's 7 Weeks Coffee. That's 7weekscoffee.com. And remember to use the promo code ATV10. Really excited about today's guest. Holly and I talked, and I've shared on the show a couple of times that I deal with anxiety. It is a part of my day. And Holly has a great book. Holly, great to have you here on the morning break. Holly is, you are a licensed counselor. Give everybody all your stuff, because I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. I am a licensed professional counselor out of Texas right now. I live in the Fort Worth area. I was actually born and raised in Alabama, just north of Birmingham in Trussville. I'm a University of Alabama graduate from many years ago. And my first degree was in elementary education. So I was an elementary education teacher for 8 years. And then I went back to school and got my master's degree from a school in Moore, Oklahoma called Mid-America Christian University as I was teaching. And I have been practicing in the field of mental health since 2018 is when I graduated. 2019 is when I received my license in Texas. And I have been practicing in the mental health field ever since.
And so do you, like, when you see somebody with a Texas, like a Longhorns sweatshirt on, do you go Roll Tide as you walk
Oh,
by,
yeah.
or go, yeah,
Oh, yes.
totally.
There's a big group,
I've
there's a whole group of Alabama fans out here. When my sister and I moved out here originally, I have a twin sister, and we both graduated from Alabama. We came out to Texas. We joined a group called Tide in Texas. And it's a group of Alabama fans that get together and watch games together, like at, hotels or bars or restaurants. They all get together, and we went to a couple of their events, and it was really fun. But there really is a good amount of Alabama fans out here.
Well, I love Texas, but yes, I would totally love to needle them, because they really are serious about their football, as is Alabama,
Yes, they
obviously.
are. Yes, they are,
Yeah.
for sure.
But no, I want to talk about anxiety, and I want to talk about your book that you've written about anxiety. And I'm going to put you on the spot, because we didn't ask this question ahead of time. I didn't ask you this, but how many people do you think suffer from anxiety, or is it becoming more common that we're hearing about it more, or how do you think this that it's becoming much more to the forefront of people's yeah, for me, I didn't
Yeah.
realize I had anxiety until I really started reading everything and went, "That's what it is." And then my doctor going,
Mhm.
"That's what you have." And, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And anxiety is actually the most commonly diagnosed mental health disorder in the world. One in three, is like looking at the United States, 1 in 3 adults will deal with an anxiety disorder diagnosis sometime in their life, throughout their lifespan. It like just a couple. I did look up some statistics, so I was prepared for this answer. Three in 2021, 359.2 million people were diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. It's on the rise, especially in adolescents and young adults. Age 19 to 24 is a really common age frame that you see the anxiety disorder diagnosis develop. And the most commonly diagnosed anxiety disorder is called generalized anxiety disorder, which some people may be familiar with. Some key signifiers of that disorder are worry, restlessness, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, irritability, and muscle tension. That one's the one that I will say, me specifically, I do see generalized anxiety as being the most common one that I've come across. In my early years as a counselor, I worked just with teenagers, and that one was a very, very common one, especially in teens. Now, just looking at the church specifically, those statistics are pretty similar. It's about 33% of adults generally will experience a diagnosis, and it's about 34% of practicing Christians. So the statistics are very similar among practicing believers, and then just among other religions and non-religious people.
I love that. I love yeah, and I think it's sad, and I wonder with like teens and stuff because you're the numbers you were talking about.
Mhm.
Is it the rise of social media too that has played a part in that? Do you think that?
Yes, there has been research. I can't speak on specific numbers, but there has been research, especially on young brains, on the impact of social media on their developing brain. I know, there's a book out there called The Lonely Generation that talks about, we really don't have, especially teenagers, we don't have the social skills a lot that we used to have to learn because a lot of the interactions now are happening on screens. And it may feel like, if I have 300 followers, it may feel like I have 300 friends, but really, I probably don't, or I may feel like I actually have none. So it is social media definitely does play a role. And I'm sure you're aware there's actually a push these days to delay putting kids on social media because of the negative impact it has on their mental health. And when I worked specifically with teenagers during my first 3 years as a counselor, that was the most common issue I saw was social media was a big problem with their mental health. And yet they were so attached to it that they really struggled when that piece was taken from them. However, a lot of times it was sourced in what led them to struggle in the first place. It was a big factor there. So it's definitely a big problem.
I mean, you look at it. So last time I had a meeting with about there's probably 10 or 12 of us there, and these are all adults.
Hmm.
I mean, well, the rest were adults, and I'm me. But I mean, they're so overall, we were all adults, and it's amazing how often that you would sit, and we were kind of in a uh, half circle type thing. How many times that people were checking their phones, and
Hmm.
I'm guilty of this, so I'm not judging other people because I was. It was
We all
like
do
this. You know,
it.
I was watching the guy, and I was looking down to see if any notifications or anything that I had. So, and I think that anxiety can be caused from that. You look around, I mean, even in adults, and we look at, and it's terrible because I'm a very competitive person, but we look at people and we use it as like a measuring stick. And reality is none of our lives are like our social media. I look at my own
Hmm.
social media and I giggle at, you know,
Hmm.
it looks like I'm jet setting all the time, but you don't get to see the part where I'm taking the garbage to the curb or,
Right.
I don't post that stuff. So I want to ask this. I have two questions I want to ask. So let's say that somebody is a parent that's watching this and they know that their kid is probably dealing with this. What are the steps they should take? Obviously, get them to see a counselor would be part of that, but uh, give them kind of some advice.
Well, I think it's important to remember, especially as Christians, that anxiety is not a spiritual failure. And I think a lot of times we can fall into that belief: I'm doing something wrong. I shouldn't be feeling like this. And it's really important to remember that, first of all, anxiety is a medical condition that you can be diagnosed with by a professional. And so opening up, I think, the conversation in a non-judgmental way is going to be super important. One thing I've always talked to parents about specifically is when your teen or your child talks to you, even if it's something you really don't want to hear, in the sense of something hard to hear. Maybe you learned something about your kid that makes you sad, or you didn't realize they were struggling so much. It's so important to thank them for talking to you, because we want them to talk. We want them to tell us. That's one of the biggest challenges, is just allowing them the space to speak about what they're struggling with, and to remind them, this is something I tell clients that walk in my office. I don't care if they're 12 or if they're 75. Anxiety is an emotion, and guess what? Every person feels it. So if someone tells you they've never felt anxious in their life, they're probably not telling you the truth, because we're all human, and it's part of being human is feeling this feeling of anxiety, and it's a normal emotion. And so one thing that I really have a goal of is, I feel like, just culturally and as humans, we've put anxiety on this scary big pedestal, and it really does feel scary. It's awful. Physically, it feels terrible. Mentally, it feels terrible. However, it is just a feeling out there, and we can look at it as an opportunity to overcome it.
And I think for people, there is a certain level, and I wouldn't call it anxiety, but a certain level of anxiousness that helps us to perform. Like I get
Yes.
anxious when
Mhm.
I go on stage somewhere to speak, or I do even TV like this.
Mhm.
There's a moment of that anxiety and it kicks in like that, and then you go, okay, I'm ready now. It's almost like it wakes your whole body up. So
Yeah.
I don't think all anxiety is bad.
No, it's not. You're absolutely right. It actually it's a God-given push. It helps keep us on task. If I'm presenting a project in front of a class, that little bit of anxiousness is going to hopefully push me to prepare and to have my notes written out and to do the work. Or if I have a deadline on a project, that anxiety is going to play that role. It's there to keep us alive. It's there to keep us on task. So it definitely does serve a function. And I think a lot of times we fall into the belief that we shouldn't, like, whenever anxiety comes back, it's a bad thing. But in reality, it just means we describe it as in our environment. It's something happening. There's a reason I'm feeling anxious. There's something going on, possibly in my life or even in my own body, which is causing me to feel this way. And that's okay. It's not a failure on my part when I feel anxious again.
See, I love that. I
Hmm.
love what you just said. That is so important. Because so many people I think get and you never want to downgrade somebody, but I think some people realize or they don't want to ever feel anxious. So then
Hmm.
they fall in this crutch of, well, I'm anxious. I need to, take medicine for it or whatever. But I think what you just said is so important. That little bit of anxiety sometimes is the thing that pushes us to get our work done. It's there to kind of, I don't want to be the one that holds the team up in whatever it is I'm working on. If I'm working on a project with and then I get anxious, but that anxiety then, if it's properly done, gets me to go do my work.
Yes, and like we mentioned, it does play an important role in our lives. When it runs rampant and it starts controlling our choices, us saying no to things, us not going out and not doing things anymore. That's when it can start taking control of our lives, and it becomes a big problem, because physically in our body, the anxiety response is the same thing as our fight or flight response. It puts us in survival mode, which is a God-given state of our body. It's a physiological state that God designed us that way, and it's meant to function the way it's meant to function. However, when we experience anxiety a lot, guess what? We're in our fight or flight mode a lot. And so, medication can be a great way to help people feel stability, because usually when we're avoiding things, we're avoiding that feeling of anxiety, that physical, chest pain or that stomach ache or that dizziness, those are all physiological. Nausea. I feel nauseous personally. Sometimes it's the way our body is meant to work. And so I describe it as, if you're really in the spot where you're struggling with the feeling of anxiety, you're not alone. If you do end up seeking out medication, that can be a great support. I describe it as, it's like someone throws you a life preserver, and it keeps your head above water. You're drowning. Now you have something to hold on to, but you still have to kick. You still have to kick to shore. It's not it's keeping you afloat. It's helping you feel more stable. But then also it's a way, especially us as Christians, we're able to view it, I think, as an opportunity for us to grow in our trust in the Lord. He calls us to cast our anxieties on him. He lets us know, don't worry about tomorrow. I've got it covered. And anytime anxiety comes in, it's an opportunity for us to practice those things.
Show everybody the book and what is okay. Here's the book. You can get it on Amazon. I assume you can get it on Amazon.
Yes, it's on Amazon. Mm-hmm.
So I have two questions. First of all, what's the big takeaway? If somebody gets this book, what's the big takeaway you want them to have?
That anxiety is not you. Like, we use certain language. I am just anxious. My anxiety's back again. Anxiety is not us. This is actually a Bible study that I wrote. So The Anxious Believer is a 4-week Bible study. And it is actually a blend of psychology and faith, because about 2 years ago, I got trained in a version of treating anxiety, an evidence-based form of cognitive behavioral therapy that I had not been trained in before. And I've been using it ever since then with my clients. And I'm very blessed in the sense that many of my clients who come to me are Christians. They're practicing Christians. And the common thread is, it was like on repeat in my office of someone coming in, an adult coming in my office, practicing Christian. Anxiety is the culprit. Anxiety is the culprit again and again and again. And I believe, at least in my experience, the church is being attacked. Anxiety is being used against us as believers. And so I felt inspired to write this book, this Bible study, because based on the techniques that I use as a counselor that are psychology-based, that are evidence-based, they match, believe it or not, directly with what the Bible says. And one of the key basic principles is called externalization. That's what we do. It doesn't matter if you walk in my office and you're an atheist, you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, it doesn't matter. Externalizing is where we practice viewing the anxiety as something else. It's not me anymore. I'm not at war with myself. I'm at war with something else. And as Christians, I believe that to be spiritual warfare. So this book is a blend of the psychology and then the faith and how they work really well together. So it's really about, by the end of it, if you look at the cover, I did cross out anxious. That was on purpose, because the goal by the end of doing this study is picking a new word. We're not anxious believers anymore. So by the end of the study, your goal is to actually cross out anxious. I actually have an example here where I did this study with a group of people, and this was my new word. So your goal by the end of the study is we're shedding the label. We're going to feel anxious again. It's not necessarily going to go away, and that's okay, but that's not who we are in Christ. That's not our identity.
I love that. What's your favorite chapter as you since you wrote the book? What's your favorite chapter in the book?
I would say, that's a good question. So it's 4 weeks. I would say week 3. That's the week that they've become in my head as what's called the 5 R's. I didn't think of that when I wrote it, but every lesson that week starts with an R. And it's where you learn like skills. And that's where I took skills that I do as a counselor, and I put them into how can we look at this as Christians. So the 5 R's are: 1, we recognize the lie of anxiety. We resist the compulsive behavior. We resist, saying no when God's calling us to say yes, for example. We replace lies with the truth. We rebuke the devil like Jesus did in the desert. That's the story that day, which I love. And then we find rest in the Lord. And we talk about how God, time and time again, calls us to rest. He leads us beside still waters. He makes us lie down in green pastures. He says, don't worry about tomorrow. I've got it. That's actually our first scripture verse in the study is Matthew 6:34. So there's a memory verse every week as well. But The goal, God calls us to physical rest and he calls us to mental rest. And what we know based on psychology and evidence is that when our bodies are calm, our minds are calm. When our minds are calm, our bodies are calm. And that makes us our best self. And when we're able to rest in God, we're able to be a weapon for his kingdom, which is definitely what the devil does not want. So I would say, yeah, week 3 for sure.
I love that, because I think for me, like my anxiety, I'm not like all the time anxious. It's usually about a yearly thing where it pops up, and usually it's when God is telling me to do something and I'm kind of in that process of praying. So I love what you just said. When you're like in the process of going, okay, God, this is what do you want me to do? And then you feel anxious, like, well, maybe this isn't what God had for me to do. And then you're like, oh my, what am I doing? And that's what usually winds me up.
Well, and I think we too, and I think we can fall into the belief that if God calls us into something, that we won't feel anxious and we won't feel scared. And I think that's actually the opposite. I think that when we feel anxious and scared, it allows us the chance to rely on God and understand, like, you know what, you're going to take care of me. It may not be what I think, the outcome may not be what I think it's going to be or what I want it to be, but you know better than me, and you're going to take care of me no matter what. One example I give in the book, of course, is the story of walking on water. Jesus calls Peter out of the boat. He could have kept him in the boat, but not only was there a storm, not only were they scared, but he said, get out. There's a whole lesson on how we should get our feet wet. We should be getting out of the boat. And it is a scary place to be, but that it's an opportunity for us to know God more. My pastor said recently, he said, we praise God on the mountaintops, but we get to know God in the valleys. Like that's our opportunity to trust in him. Anytime anxiety comes up, it is an opportunity to step out in faith. And so that's the overall goal of this Bible study.
That's so awesome. Holly, show the book again and then go get it on Amazon.
Yes. And I just want to briefly mention, I did adapt it into a teen version.
See, there you go. So if you're watching this, if you're a mom or dad watching this and you have a teen that's struggling with anxiety, and it seems to, I don't know, and because I'm older, I don't know, it seems like right now that is a real hot topic for teens, is anxiety. So grab the book, get a hold of Holly. You can look her up. We'll have in the show notes, we'll have her information and her links and stuff. Holly, thanks for being with us.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey, great to have you with. Where has the time gone? It has gone by way too fast. Again, what is this? Every day is so fast. Great. Having a great guest though, like Holly on the show. Check out her book about anxiety. Get her on Amazon. Find it in the show notes. Thank her very much. It's another great day. Hey, it's Wednesday, so that you know what that means for me. I get the rest of the week off. Actually, technically I don't. So you guys don't know this, but then tomorrow I do the show Thrive with Jason Webb. So we do that tomorrow. So technically tomorrow's not off for me. It just is recorded. You can always check out Thrive every day at 8 a.m. Eastern time on the network. And so appreciate each and every one of you. Next week, we've got some great interviews. It's going to be a great week here on the Morning Break. Appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for spending your morning break with me. Now go out and have an amazing rest of the day.